And now to something completely different. Bonus points to those who catch that reference. I did mention in the slide, in the introductory slide leading into this whole training video series, that that there were countless minor improvements in this release, most of which you probably would not notice. One of these changes I do want to point out is in the settings panel. And you may actually notice it in there, and I want to make sure it doesn't cause any confusion. So, as you all know, the settings panel in SD Zones is a feature that allows you to change settings for the indicator without using inputs and applying it to multiple charts and multiple radar screen rows at the same time. In charts, you open the settings panel by right-clicking any zone line, like so, and go to settings from that little pop-up menu that shows. That will bring up the settings panel here, and this will be the settings panel for this particular chart, right? See Dow 60-minute chart, that's this one here. Let's close this again. I'll show you. You can also open it by right-clicking the chart title in the top left corner, and that too will bring up a little pop-up menu, and you can click the settings panel, bring up exactly the same settings panel. Or you can hold the control key. I can't show you this, but believe me, I'm holding down the control key right now, and I'm right-clicking my mouse in this chart background. Boom, that will bring up also the same settings panel. All three ways bring up exactly the same panel. It's just different ways of doing the same thing. This thing up here is really for when you don't have any zone lines to click, but the same can be said with a control right click, which I use all the time because it's so convenient. You just control right click, it opens the settings panel. And the main thing to understand is that this chart has its settings panel for this symbol and this chart. This chart has its own, this chart has its own, this chart has its own, and every radar screen row has its own. That's just by design how TradeStation works. But any changes you make in here, let's say we wanted to go from strict to extreme zone criteria so that we find fewer but higher probability zones, like so. That will highlight the apply button down here, and that's actually the change I wanted to point out. But that will apply to this chart, but it will also apply it to this chart and to all the radar screen rows. Why only to those? Why not to these down here? Because it applies the changes to all windows that have the same settings preset input value. So since these are set to strict and strict and strict in their inputs, that means all of these will have these changes applied, in this case changing to extreme, but not these two, because they were set to the lax preset, they were set to the high time frame preset. So they will be kept out of this, and that is of course deliberate, because when we change this, we do not want to change the high time frame, and vice versa. The main thing to note is of course that in order to apply changes to all the different other windows and radar screen rows, you want to leave this checkbox set, apply to all charts, apply to all radar screen rows. If you clear these, then it will only apply it to this particular window here. But if you do set these, it'll apply it to all of them, and you can even select whether you want to restrict it to within this workspace or you want to apply it in all open workspaces. This is default, right? Because we don't want to create a mess that you didn't expect. So when I click apply, that will of course change this to extreme, all of these to extreme. If I left click, not right click, I'm sorry, but if you left click any of the cells, supply and demand cells over here in radar screen, that too will open up a little pop-up menu, and from there you can open the settings panel, and you will see that now this one has also picked up the extreme zone criteria, the extreme settings preset, and that's how it really works. But anything you change here, as long as you have apply set to both of these, then it will be applied across the board. All right, so much for that. Now, in case you're thinking, that doesn't seem like a minor change, Thomas. Well, yes, because this is not a change. This has been like that for 2.5 years. It is the core of this feature I introduced back in spring 2023 with this settings panel and the invalidated zones and a whole host of other features. The change that is made in this, you're going to laugh now because it is so minor, is this button was renamed. It used to say reload with updated settings. It now says apply updated settings, simply because the fact that it said reload and the opposite button is the one that says reset all to input values. That seemed to cause some confusion sometimes, and people were kind of, wait a second, am I reloading, am I resetting, am I resetting, or am I reloading? So that's all. So this this change, which is a minor change, is that this was renamed, this button, and I think this is more intuitive, but just in case anybody wonders about it or sees an email where I talk about reload with uploaded settings, that is the little change that was happened in this version here. Now, as for the functionality, again, which has been there all along, is you can make other further changes in here. We can say, listen, that's all fine and good, but really that is way too few zones we are seeing here. Actually, it's not too bad, but we want to drop this down to medium instead to find more zones. Okay, we can apply that, and that will find more zones, and it will change these two windows to medium, and then we can open it again, and again you can click on any of these rows, and we can use any of these charts. Let's go over here like so, go to settings panel, and you'll see the same things. And then if you want to say, okay, enough for that, let's go back to Thomas's defaults, that is to the input values with which the workspace was saved. If we click reset all to input values, it will reset all to input values like so. And we're back to strict and strict, and all of these rows, let me show you, any of these rows you open will also have been changed back to strict. It's not that complicated to use actually, but the mechanism underneath is, to be honest, insanely complex, and thus I cannot blame if sometimes people are wondering, what exactly happens when I do this or I do that. I hope this clears it up a little bit. And again, there is one of the small minor changes, the countless minor changes in this release. You know what? This will be a good opportunity to show another aspect of the settings panel that sometimes causes confusion. And even though I have described it in a couple of different videos, and of course the user guide, let me just use this opportunity nevertheless. Let's say I open the settings panel. Let's use this down here instead. Now we're going to go for the high time frame chart. And if I, once again, I can right click over here and click settings from there. I can right click this line and click settings from there, or I can control right click. Either way will it open the settings panel for this chart. And if I open that, and let's say in this case what I want to change is not the preset. What I want to change here is I don't want to show merged zones like this. Okay, so what HD Zones does is when zones are close to each other, such as these two zones down here, it'll merge them together. And sometimes you don't want to see that. So if I uncheck this, it'll stop merging, and once again it will actually apply that to all of the charts that have the same settings preset value, both this and this. All right, so let me just apply that. Boom, there we go, and now it is no longer merging. Remarkably, of all of these, only a few are merged down here, and you'll see that that they are now resolved individually. So there's one zone here, and then another zone was formed inside it. And that's actually the only merged zone we saw there. We go to the other chart. Definitely there were some merging going on. There was this big zone that worked so well here, and again here. Then it came down. It formed a new drop-based rally zone going out of there, and then another zone up here. But again, that's what the merging kind of hides all that mess. So all you're seeing is say, hey, there's some zony business going on from here down to here. That's really that's its purpose. Now, what is it I wanted to show? Is that about zone merging? It was actually about the settings panel, but this was an opportunity to describe that as well. So let's say now I do go and say I've seen this. That's fine. That's all good. I right click again. I go into the settings panel. Now I want to change it. Well, yes, if I want to reset also input values, I can do that. But everybody seems to be a little bit confused about these little input buttons here, which I described down here. It says press input button, INP button, next to each setting to reset it to input values. So instead of resetting everything to input values, if you want to reset only one setting, you can just click the input button next to that setting, and it'll reset that setting and just only that setting to input values. So in the case of this merge zones, I can click input here, that will reset that. And if I had made all the other changes, I mean, I could have said I want thicker lines, I want a different chart title, I want to use a different color preset, I could do a number of things. Well, each of them can all be reset individually if you click this little input button, and that's how that one works. And after doing that, well, you can click apply, because that will apply that. As it turns out, in this case, if we happen to be back to the input values, the result will be the same as if you click this. But either way, it doesn't hurt, so we'll just say, okay, we changed something. We restored this one by clicking the input button. We'll click apply updated settings, and that does that. I hope I didn't confuse more than I infused with this, but that's the little imp button that seems to sometimes cause some head scratching. And while we're at it, let me just briefly show a feature that was added in the release from this spring, which is when you right-click a zone line, again here, and you get this little pop-up menu. This menu was added that says change on this chart only. So that is, if it's just too much of a burden to open that settings panel and change things, and you only want to change something on this particular chart, and it's only one thing at a time you want to change, this is a very convenient little feature. So before, when we changed the zone merging, well, guess what? You can right-click here and go down here, and you can also toggle that off by clicking this here. See, that will do the same thing. That will do it. That will reveal or resolve the different zones we have down there. But lo and behold, it does not apply it over here, because it changes on this chart only, right? And again, this is also one where you can change several things, and you can change them with this menu or with the settings panel. It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, if you click reset to input values here, that will reset again this chart to all input values, including any number of features you may have changed in it. Again, not rocket science, but you probably need to, but maybe not intuitive either. So I don't think it's a bad idea to explain it so people know how it is there, because it is a very convenient feature when you know it is there and know how to use it. All right, enough with that. That was all I had, and as is often the case with me, it ended up being rather a lot. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Thank you for using SD Zones, and very much thank you for trusting me and it to help you find trades.